All right, we are back on the Connected Design podcast, and still kind of surreal to be able to say that. We're only a couple interviews, couple weeks into relaunching this platform, and the reason for doing it, the reason to be, is for conversations like what we're about to have right now, and that's one with Mr. Kyle Steele, the founder and CEO of Global Wave Integration. Mr. Steele, always great to see you out on the road and connect in person, but the in-between conversations are where the real fun happens, right?
Exactly. Very true.
No, that's awesome. Well, first of all, how are you? Let's start there. How are things going?
I'm great. Thank you for having me, and congratulations, Rob. I'm very excited for you and Connected Design. I've always been a big fan, so this is great. But it's 2026 now. We couldn't be more excited. I mean, post-pandemic, tariffs, all that good stuff. The first 2 weeks of 2026 has been fantastic, so things are looking good.
That's awesome. So for those that I feel like, people know you, it's safe to say, I think, but like for those that don't, how would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, in the business, and just kind of how you came to be at, Global Wave, founding and starting the business there. I feel like two entrepreneurs, like entrepreneurial spirits here. We could talk about starting businesses. Isn't that something?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I always introduce myself as a home technology professional, and sometimes I have to explain exactly what that is. But I guess getting into this business, it's quite the journey. I'll try to give you the shorter version of it. My background is in digital systems engineering. Very passionate about music. So in college, I was splitting time between playing in cover bands, going to school. I was in the College of Engineering, College of Music, College of Business. And it was kind of like my dream eventually to have my own recording studio. I was on
Looks like you're sitting in one. I mean,
well, funny
that,
enough,
right?
yes, we actually got this drum room from a client who's a very famous drummer. So
That's
it was
awesome.
a good trade-off where we're building out his recording studio in his house, and he got rid of this. So I'm like, ooh,
Wow.
I'll take that. So I got a drum kit in a drum room. It's now
That's
turned
awesome.
into the accounting department, which is pretty funny. But yeah, in school, I was actually on track to be a quality assurance engineer for Raytheon.
Wow.
And I got cold feet. I didn't like the idea of a 9 to 5. I mean, sure, it was in Tucson. We got every Friday off, but I figured it's the only time in my life where I didn't have a ton of responsibility. So I feel bad for my parents, but I was like, you know what? I'm moving back to Portland, Oregon, my hometown, and I'm starting a band. And they're like, what is this kid doing? But it was just the best time. I moved back to Portland with my college roommate. He's an electrical engineer, just the best guitarist I've ever met. We met this incredible singer-songwriter in Portland, and we started gaining a lot of traction in Oregon, playing clubs, and we're kind of selling out places. So the record labels started calling, and they're like, if you guys are serious, you have to move to LA. And I'll never forget, I went back to our apartment. My then girlfriend, now wife, I kind of nonchalantly looked at her and was like, hey, I guess we got to move to LA. Are you down? She's like, let's go. And within the week, the whole band jumped in a Buick Cadillac, and we drove to California, and we found a 400 square foot condo in the South Bay of LA, pretty close to the beach because our lead singer wanted to surf every day. So
Wow.
if you can imagine, here I am in LA, out of college, living with my girlfriend in a band, and it's pay to play in LA. We're touring. It was just the time of our lives. But after that year living with the band, I looked at my girlfriend. I'm like, you know what? You're definitely a keeper. You're a trooper. And this was over 20 years ago. We've been
Wow.
married going on 18 years. But back then I was like, how am I going to make a living to support us? And I answered this employment ad, and it sounded like electrical engineering, it sounded like working in recording studios, building stuff, breaking stuff. And I was the first employee for an integration firm in the South Bay. And sure enough, the first day on the job, I'm crawling underneath the house, pulling cat cable, just kind of getting stuck under the house. I'm like, this is not what I expected at all. But I absolutely fell in love with the industry, just every aspect of it. And my boss at the time, he was very honest. He's like, I know nothing about this industry, but give it 10 years. If we have this nice little niche of like luxury living and high-end residential, this could be a very viable business. And he's very honest. He came from Big Five marketing. He had a master's an MBA from Stanford. And he's just like, I know nothing about this, just run with it. He had a young family. He had kids at home. And he's just like, I'm going to be at home and you just kind of take care of this business.
Wow.
And we took off pretty quick. We built out a showroom in South Bay in Hermosa Beach. Started getting trucks, hiring up. We got a new office. It was great. I loved everything about it.
Yeah.
And then I met this alarm company where I was so blown away by their operation. The owner of this alarm company, I mean, he was like this mad scientist, right? He was doing special effects for big Hollywood movies. He's blowing up stuff. I mean, when it came to low voltage, I mean, he was a guru. And I met him on a project, and the client, it was actually a neighbor of ours. She was an 84-year-old woman living by herself, and she had this big, beautiful home, had it fully pre-wired. And she's like, I wish I knew you guys did this type of work because I would have hired you guys, but I hired this alarm company to do the whole automation system. You know, it's really expensive. Can you just come vet? You know, we're about to do this walkthrough. Just make sure everything's above board. Keep an honest company honest. And so I did this walkthrough with my neighbor and the owner of the alarm company, and it was mind blowing. For 4 hours, the owner of this company was just way too much detail for this homeowner, right? I mean, he was explaining the physics and different cat cable and like why and transmission speeds. And she's looking at me like, what is he talking about?
You're the translator. You didn't know this at the time.
Yeah.
You were the translator.
Yeah, I think at the time she's like, just say you're like my nephew or something like that. And I'm sitting there after the walkthrough, and she looks at me like doesn't know what to say. She's like, what do you think? And I looked at the owner of the alarm company. I'm like, are you hiring? I was so impressed. I mean, know your audience, I guess. But I mean, I was like, I can learn a lot from this guy. And sure enough, he was doing surveillance security for you name it, who's who of Hollywood, A-listers, a lot of my idols. And he's really mostly just doing alarm. And we're still very good friends today. Like we have a building now. He's our alarm company. We call each other kind of sister companies. By the time, he didn't know Crestron Electronics. I was already a Crestron programmer. And I was like, let me help you kind of blow up your business, because if you're just doing security on like 40,000 square foot estates, let me be the home automation arm. And so we grew his company pretty quickly with the context knowing that I'd eventually start my own company. So I officially incorporated Global Wave Integration back in 2008. Probably the worst year in American history to start a company. And that could be a whole another podcast of what not to do. But it was amazing. Like that was the year I got married. We bought our first house, incorporated Global Wave, and we had our first major client that I had no business getting. The client he is an iconic filmmaker. And he reached out to Crestron. He wanted to interview 6 companies to kind of, he had this grand vision of all his estates, his yachts, jet, the same interface. So no matter where you are is the same user experience, and he was looking to hire a company to do so. And so Crestron at the time, like I kind of got a reputation when I was an independent programmer, like the Crestron fix-it guy. So and at that time, Crestron was going through some issues. They're changing chipsets and their wireless devices, and they weren't the most stable systems. So every time Crestron had like a complaint or a bad install, they were kind of calling me to be like, hey, go fix it. So the ongoing joke was like, I was the fixer in LA. So eventually I called Crestron being like, it's great. Thank you so much for thinking of me to go like rescue these projects. But it'd also be nice if we got like a new project where maybe the client wasn't already kind of fed up with the technology. Yeah, and so I think for this iconic filmmaker, they kind of threw my name in the hat just because, just as a courtesy, not thinking I would get it. But after my last interview, they called me and said, you know, you got the gig, and I was honestly frightened. I was like, I cannot, like, it was me and a helper at the time, and everyone else interviewing with this client was around 30, 40 years at the time, well established. And so I had to go ask the client, I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, like, why do you choose us? And he's like, well, you're talking about things no one else is talking about. You seem to be very forward thinking, and you're younger, so maybe you can age with us. So that's something I've always really like kind of hung my hat on, right? Like, let's try to be the most forward thinking, innovative company out there. And I believe we've done that for the past 18 years. I mean, even last year, all the awards we won in terms of excellence and innovation and the things we developed in-house were pretty unique in that regard. So it's been quite the journey.
I was gonna say, I mean, you look at it, it's all because you answered a newspaper ad. Like that's wild.
Yeah, I mean, my entire career, it's just been one thing after another of just happenstance. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I couldn't be more grateful, more blessed, and it's all because of the team we have. But it doesn't. It feels very lucky.
Right.
I mean, the kind of work for the creators of the world and allow them to create what they do, whether it's building a recording studio or a home cinema, so they can watch their dailies, writers, people doing podcasts from their home. It's like we get to be that service provider for people who are, creating out there. So
Mhm.
I think that's kind of our motivation and what really drives us
Yeah.
as a company.
Now, I mean, your start on the music side of things, like, is there anything you pull from that aside from maybe just an interest in this space and kind of seeing how, setting up a show at a local place, not quite integrating a home with all these automation systems, but is there anything you can kind of pull from that lifestyle or just what you were doing on the music side to what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean it's a great question because I feel like music always pulls me back. In fact, I'm looking at a sign that we stole from Sonius at their showroom we just installed this week, but it says "Life is better with music" in neon above my desk. And it's like the more we get into home automation or like just running the business, now multiple businesses, and I got to be a business person, but music always pulls me back, whether it's a project, solutions we do now. We do a lot of like sonic branding now. A lot of people in our company, they come from audio engineering. So we're one of the few firms, I believe, that we actually create content and sonically within a home, we kind of build scenes. There's so much you can do with music in terms of health and wellness. So maybe we're not recording an album, but the fact that we get to create scenes and audio tracks and simulations
Yeah.
using music, and then still go build the recording studios and now not media rooms but media lounges we call them now. But there's so much we can create and do in those spaces.
Yeah.
So it's not just doing the install and programming, but we're actually creating content now that's really focused around music, which is really cool. Like if we're working in a spa resort or working with a wellness consultant, which is very unique for this space, is like sonically we'd ask them what's their brand, what it is that experience and how do we tailor that to them. So I feel like it's very music driven, audio driven, especially when we talk about health and wellness. There's so many benefits. And so it's our job as integrators to educate what's possible out there.
No, that's awesome. Do you stay in touch with the bandmates?
Yeah. I mean, the guitarist is still my best friend. And
Yeah.
ironically, he's in the industry. He works,
Okay.
he essentially runs a very large commercial firm out of Arizona. And it's funny because you talk about like what keeps bringing me back, but when the bandmates were all living together, we did get signed and dropped pretty quick. And it's funny because the person who signed us saw us play live in LA, and he's got 34 Grammys, and he came up after our set, and it's like that typical LA story. He's like, "I'm signing you guys. Come to my house. We'll do like a 6-month deal, 6 song, and then we'll get you a major deal after that." I was like, wow, that just happened. And negotiations kind of fell apart. And then years later, I'm working for an interior designer, and she's like, "Hey, we're doing this home cinema, beautiful, fully just decked out cinema." And I'm just there to do the Crestron programming. And end of the day, I'm done with the Crestron 8X touch panel, and the homeowner walks in, and sure enough, it's that music producer who signed us. And so I'm walking up, and I'm showing them, like, here's your touch panel. This is how it works. This is how you turn on the projector. And I looked at him like, "Do you remember me by any chance?" He's like, "No, should I?" I'm like, "Nope. So this is how you turn everything on." I mean, I always have these like, these full circle moments in our career where it's just like, it just feels surreal. But I mean, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like there's just never a dull moment, and we can go on forever about stories, but it's,
oh my gosh.
Next conference at Aussie.
Yeah, right. We'll do that for sure. I look forward to that. But Obviously a lot going well. I'd love to flip it for you for a second and just give you the chance. Like, are there areas where you find, whether it's you personally, your business, or just the channel in general, where it is tough? What are some of those struggles right now that you're kind of having to get through?
Yeah, I think just at a macro level, there's a lot going on, obviously, right? You have the big players coming in more and more to the space, whether it's Apple, Google, Amazon, and then you throw AI into the equation. I mean, I know everyone's talking about AI. It's like, how do we leverage this? And even this year, there's so many new developments in terms of AI. Like, AI won't take business away from us, I strongly believe, but companies who really embrace those tools will thrive, and the companies who do not, they're going to have a tougher time. I mentioned earlier, coming out of the pandemic and tariffs and kind of everything going on in the world, we're very optimistic about this year. Like, we're already seeing the phones ringing more. I'm talking to other integrator friends, very optimistic. I think the challenge really is that middle market, right? It is becoming more of a do it yourself, but we strongly believe in do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Our clientele, the 1% of 1%, they're not going to be impacted by, economic kind of downturns, anything like that. They're always going to need companies like us. But I think it's important as an industry that we need to help up those other companies, show them other opportunities that we should be talking more about, especially when it comes to power, the lighting plan, the power plan. Like, lead with that.
Yep.
Don't lead with AV. I'm really trying to. We've always been 100% word of mouth. And the past 2 years, I've intentionally just trying to get back in a way, or just help other integrators, because there's so much opportunity out there. We just need to know where to look.
Yeah.
And I think part of that's just education and what we talk about. Mm-hmm.
What's crazy in there is to hear you say, "Don't lead with AV." Is that something you look back 5-10 years like that? The thought of saying that seems kind of surreal or taboo, right? Like, could you ever envision that being the case of, like, you don't have to lead with AV when this channel was like, I mean, that's its heart and soul, its foundation.
It is. I mean, that's how I started, right?
Right.
Home cinema, AV, whole house systems. Very intentionally, probably about maybe even 10 years ago, telling our team, like, we are not the AV guys. Yes, we are. And then it was like, we're system integrators, or, home automation, but even now, like, people don't really want to hear that. Designers don't want to talk about systems or automation. Let's talk about experiences and environments. That's really what we should focus on. But if you're talking about black boxes and universal remote control, and that's all important. Control systems are not dead, and that's a whole nother thing I can get into. Right. But no, it's that experience. It's that invisible layer of what technology should be providing. It's that layer of care that's kind of working in the background that enhances your experience, and not just, AV systems, right? Those are that focus. Interior designers, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to refer in the AV guide, because now they feel like they're on the hook. If anything happens, the interior designer's getting that call. That's the last thing they want. Right. So I think you really got to frame it in the experience. Like, how do you want this room to feel? Start with that. Just don't ask, like, what size TV do you want? Like, how do you want it to feel? Do you want to feel relaxed, or is this a workstation? What is the application of the room, and then kind of work back from that. So I think if you kind of speak the language to the interior designers, architects, developers, what they want to hear, now you're not just a subcontractor selling, like, black boxes in Navy.
Yeah, no, I love that. And there's like 3 ways I want to go with this. So I'm trying to figure out which path do I truly want to go down and start doing it. So, because I think the conversation and how you talk, there's almost like a humbleness to that, right? Of, knowing that so many of the businesses in this space had that same origin, right, of coming up as AV integrators, and that being the space. But, in order to grow and, evolve the business, which is something that even just in your relatively short time compared to other businesses that are out there, right? Like, you've had to evolve and adapt, and you've been able to do it. Like, they have to sort of remain humble if they want to get along with and understand the designers and the architects and the way they speak? Like, do you find, was that, I imagine you're having success with it, so I imagine I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it was easier for you, it seems like, to understand what it's like to connect with those disciplines and those professionals. Do you find it that, your peers, like, what is it? Is there anything that sort of allows them to, or something you all have in common, as far as wanting to understand how to talk to designers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit two buzzwords, keywords, humble and adaptable. Being a smaller company, we're extremely adaptable. We listen to our clients, the design team, and we kind of work from there. The ability to listen in this industry is kind of paramount, right?
Right.
And that takes being humble. Like, we are not a technology provider, we're a service provider. And the more you really focus on service, service is everything to us. I mean, especially these days, I think every company should be offering 24/7, 365 support. That's barrier to entry. I mean, that's the first thing you should be educating your design team about. But it's just not being that subcontractor. Like, I think the design team, they look at it like, oh, the AV guy is almost like, the electrician or the IT guy. It's like, you don't want to be pigeonholed in that. And we all say it's never too early to get in on a project, but how do you actually do that, right? If you're just getting you're contracted to the contractor, the design team's always going to look at you slightly differently, right? But how do you get on the design side of things? And that's where we really focus on. And that was one of the pivots we did, or being adaptable. It's like, that's where we need to be, because we learned the hard way, like on some of these really large projects, we are almost brought in as like an afterthought, where it's almost too late. Like, no one really factored in the quality of power. We just assumed electricians would take care of it. So we came in late in the game. We put in a system with 8 racks, fully integrated. I think there's like 400 motorized shades in the home. And sure enough, and we had 2 video walls. And sure enough, when we commissioned it, video walls were a little finicky, motorized shades weren't stable, reliable. And then we started measuring the quality of power, and it was all over the map. It was crazy. So we finally put in a solution after the fact. All the issues went away, right? And so that was like our aha moment, is like, all right, this is one way you can get on the design side early on, just asking the simple question, what is your power plan? And they might look at you funny, and it's like, oh, we got a generator for backup. Well, that's not good for our system. That causes chaos, a lot of lockups, dirty power. So just having that conversation, you almost scared them into like, wow, our client's spending all this money on the AV system and there's no protection for it. They're not protecting their investment. It's not going to be reliable. It's like, all right, well, let's like get the AV guy to meet with the MEP, the electrical contractors, and have those discussions early on, before they break ground. And now you can really leverage the entire design team, all the subcontractors, and really be that resource and glue for the entire project. And I think that's where we really shine as a company.
That might be, if not the probably most important segment of this. Just kind of hearing you say that, I think it's up there with one of them. And I don't want to. There's like a million follow-ups we could have to that. And to your point, I feel like we've said this at least 7 times. So maybe you are going to be on for a regular appearance on this podcast for all these topics. But I don't want to go too deep into that rabbit hole, because there's, like I mentioned, something else I want to talk about. But perfectly well summed up, and I love it and appreciate you diving into that. The other thing I want to ask, go back to, you mentioned AI, those 2 letters, right, that everyone's talking about these days. I want to ask, in what ways, purely out of curiosity and also just to hear your answer to it, the fear of like AI could replace the jobs in this industry. What AI can't install a system. So like in what ways do you think that, unfounded ways, potentially, to your point, right? Integrators are afraid of it. Like what could AI do, or what are they thinking? Like, what are the misconceptions out there about how AI can negatively impact this industry?
Great question. I think AI only enhances our offerings, right? We've done a lot. We're a little A little bit different because we built our own AI platform a few years ago, just for our sister company, Future Care Solutions Group, which really focuses on aging in place. And we kind of took our platform as like looking at home automation. How can we give home automation a deeper context for meaningful interventions? So we're kind of earlier on in AI, but I mean, my biggest advice, like, just start using it in some capacity. Empower your team to start using it.
Right.
Because collectively, it's like any software, whether you use Slack or Asana, any of the tools out there, like D-Tools, if you're deploying a system internally, there's no one piece of software that does everything, right? And then if that one team member doesn't use it, like Slack communication, it all kind of falls apart. I strongly believe it's the same idea with AI. Just get your team to start using it. Like, have competitions. If you have weekly meetings or your all hands meetings every quarter, have a challenge. Like, hey, use an AI tool. We just bought a new work vehicle. Whoever comes up with the best wrap for the vehicle using AI, like there's a gift card or something, like gamify it. It's so important, just because in the past 2 weeks, there's been major developments with AI, where, not to go too deep into it, but Anthropic, Meta, ChatGPT, they are now sharing resources because they understand it's this race who can it's kind of between other countries, right?
Yeah.
So now that they're sharing things like skills, I spent all day yesterday with our team just in Claude. Start with Claude. That's all I got to recommend. Like, I know this is a little off topic, but we're not being replaced by AI. Like you mentioned, AI is not going to be installing systems, but how we leverage AI in terms of operations, client communication, planning. I mean, you can now give skill sets, like pretend you are the head of business development, like come up with a roadmap in quarter 1 for, new prospects. You click a button and you get like a 20-page report, as long as you have hooks into all the softwares you use. So operationally, for efficiency, it's been a game changer. Like, the whole team is literally getting hours back in the day using it. But in terms of installs, like the way you can present your company to end user and user manuals, like we just generated a doc for a house we just finished, is like 40 pages, and it's now Wikipedia. You can search it. I mean, the homeowner loves it. It looks like we put weeks and weeks of time putting this together, when really it was just a couple hours.
Yeah.
I mean, how that impacts your brand, right? How you look in terms of the design team. I mean, we're working on a project right now where the directive is it has to be the most prolific property on the planet in terms of wellness, longevity, technology, and luxury. And so I have this whole folder in Claude that just looks like we haven't even pulled a wire yet. It's a 40,000 square foot house. And I have a full installation guide created for every component that's going to be installed in the house, as one example.
Jeez.
And I can give that to everybody. And we have a meeting tomorrow, and we're doing all kinds of renderings. Like, the design team's like, what about this? And then we'll present a video, and it's like, oh, you mean this using AI? They're like, that's exactly what we're thinking. So this is all kind of infused on how we do things operationally and how we present things. It's been an absolute game changer. This is why I've been doing this over 20 years, and this is the most excited I've ever been, just because we have this tool set now, especially as a business owner, when there's a million things you can be thinking about. But like this morning, I woke up and said, Claude, triage my day. And it went to my calendar, went to my emails, and went to my Asana, and it basically populated this quick little narrative of what's going on in my day, where I need to put my attention towards, and what to prepare for, and meetings rest of the week, and then forecast for the rest of the quarter if I wanted. It's amazing, that peace of mind of just asking a simple question and it's done. And AI is not replacing any team members, right? We've now trained AI, and we have personas, and they have skill sets. Those AI personas are doing things that no human has ever done in our company. So It's enhancing all our jobs in production. And I think the more as an industry we embrace it, we are the industry that should be embracing AI, right? I mean, humanoids are around the corner. That's another topic. I mean, that's this year. We have two clients who've already, they've already ordered humanoids. One client ordered 3 that will be at his property in a couple weeks. And they're like, what can you do with it? It's just exciting time to be in this industry. We had another
Yeah.
client, they just embedded a RFID chip in their hand,
Jeez.
and he's using it to unlock his car. And so he called me like a couple weeks ago. Is like, how can I control my house with this? And then using AI, I just
Yeah.
came up with this whole narrative of all these things we can do, and we're going to use him as a test bed of
Oh my goodness.
embedded RFID chip in your hand.
You can
Let's see what we can do.
You can start integrating people. Here we go. This is
I
it.
know.
This is it.
So
No.
to answer your question, we're not like replacing
Right,
humans.
right.
We're actually enhancing homeowners, right?
Right. That's unbelievable. So, well, that word enhance, right? Like it's you're making things more efficient. You're making like your lives easier. And I mean, so American of us, right? Like just being so efficient and like over the top with how productive we are, like that. It's just adding to that level of productivity as an individual, as a business, as your end users too. So it's awesome to hear, even though all over the place, yeah, but AI is all over the place, right? So
Yeah.
it's awesome to hear how you guys are in many different ways employing it. Even though it might be like just a couple different tools that you're talking about here, but important to hear. You just got to try. You got to start somewhere, and I think that's the message that
You
if
just got to
anything,
jump in.
integrators, yeah, this should be
100.
taking.
Just start playing with it, because it's not a huge learning curve. You just got to do it, and
Yeah.
once you do it, you just have that skill set. Just
Yeah.
like you're teaching the AI skill sets. It's incredible.
Yeah. So I know a lot of other things I want to ask. I think I'm going to save them for another time. But there's one I want to end on, because we could keep going. This could be hours long, man. But I know we both have days to get a. I don't want to mess up with what AI told you that your day is supposed to be like. So we're gonna try to stay on track. So I want to close with one question, and I think it's a cool one to be able to ask, and that's looking back 10, 15 years. Is there a piece of advice that you would give Kyle Steele of 10, 15 years ago, knowing kind of how your career has gone and sort of what you've been able to accomplish?
Good question. I think the short of it would be trust the long arc. I think when I first started, it was kind of chasing what is the next job, what's the next project, and it's always like go go go. But the long arc being like, we're not just building a business, but we are building like platforms on how people live in their environment, and that's going to take time. So it's like asking the questions, how do you want to live in your home 20 to 30 years from now, right? And what does that home look like? How do you prepare for that? I mean, that's kind of the long game. It's not just like, here's the next install, here's the next home. It's like, truly, how do I want to live in my house? I mean, 20, 30 years from now, like, I don't want to go assisted living facility. What does that look like? What can we be doing now that enhances that, prepares us for the future of living? That's what I tell myself back in the day, is like, don't just think of like project, like, that stress of what's next. It's like, let's actually look at the long arc of things. And I think part of that, I would tell myself to just live in the moment.
Yeah.
I think when we all get lost in that as business owners, this industry is hard. If it was easy, there'd be a lot more people doing it for sure. But it's difficult, at the luxury level, dealing with the 1% of the 1%. I mean, the expectations are high, right? So I'd tell my younger self, like, just be in the moment, be present. The difficult times, those are going to pass. The amazing things that happen, just don't let the highs get too high and the lows get too low. Just, keep it level, enjoy what you do. And if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go to work, do something else. That should be a sign to just pivot what you're doing. Fortunately, I haven't had that day, but I think just keeping that even keel and just being, if you're with family, be with family. If you're on vacation, be on vacation, right? Like,
Right.
I have a tough time turning that stuff off because I'm always available for my clients, but just be present, be in the moment. And that's just the right way to live, in my opinion.
No, I love it, man. Mic drop moment for sure. And one that, like I said, we're gonna have more conversations. I feel like this isn't a one-time deal for sure. But I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us, be one of our early interviews here on Connected Designs podcast, and just your projects too. I'm interested to see what this house that's to beat all houses is gonna look like. About come the end of the project, but some exciting stuff to be able to follow with you. Now and again, to your point, down the line as we look ahead. So Awesome conversation, man. I really appreciate it, and look forward to catching up.
Well, very grateful for you, and congratulations again, and look forward to the next one. So thank you.
You bet.